Hello, Bulls fans. This is Matt Gritzmacher with UBBullRun.com. It's Monday night. We're a bit shorthanded. We're not going to have a lot to talk about, but it is Monday night. It's time for Basketbulls and Beers. Now football season's over. We're turning our attention with our Monday night podcasts to the basketball teams. We're going to alternate week to week between the men's and women's teams rather than try to split each individual show down the middle because we'll never succeed with that. And so after highlighting, the men's lost to Iowa State last week in their start to the season, we get our first chance to talk on video about the women's basketball team, which I'm not joined by anyone tonight. And it's been a couple of days since the women played, and it'll be 8 more days until they play again. So kind of poor timing on my part, but we want to make sure that we get an even level of back and forth. The women's team, if you don't follow them, I'm surprised you're watching, frankly. If you do follow them, you know they're coming this year as a very young team with only one senior, and at least for the first half of the season, one junior. They'll get another junior on December 28th when she becomes eligible. And other than that, they're one of the youngest teams in Division I. They lost 2 starters to graduation, 1 to injury, and 2 to transfer last year. And so an entire era of recruiting is totally gone, forcing the team to start over with a young group. Through that, amazing start to the season for the women. They won their first 6 games. They were the first UB team since 2003 to do that. They did that in their first 4 games. They held their first 4 opponents below 50 points. They held 3 of those below 42 points and really looked very strong. They had a win over a very good Massachusetts team, a really dominant win over Cornell, a Big 4 win over Canisius as well. Came out of that one on the road Thanksgiving weekend. Had a strong come-from-behind win against a taller Central Florida team. Had a very strong win over Clemson, who's not very good, but they are an ACC program. They're a taller team. Entirely different team for UB. UB has an excellent, Felicia Jack's team is an excellent position-based defense. Some position switches based on her young lineup have been very successful. Real responsible defense. But as you'd expect from a very young offense, one that's lost a ton of talent from last year, they haven't yet found anyone who can score consistently, at least not through these first 9 games. And since the flip to the calendar, the defense has been let down a bit. 2 very strong teams in Hofstra and Duquesne, both of whom I think will be in postseason tournaments. Each scored 79 points on the Bulls. A Big 4 grudge match against St. Bonaventure. Bonnie scored 59, which is a strong defensive showing, but not good enough if your offense isn't average, which UB's offense is not average. In those 3 games, UB's offense scored 62 points against Duquesne. That was mostly thanks to a very fast, very hot-scoring first half, punctuated by a very strong second quarter and really nothing else. And in the loss against Hofstra, they scored only 36, and in the loss against Bonaventure, only 32. Which is the lowest output, lowest scoring game for the women in like 14 years, dating back to a game against Tulsa. In that stretch, UB's played UConn twice. They've played 4 other top 10 opponents, and they'd never scored less than 33 in that span. And so that game against Bonaventure was really a new low, scoring-wise. And what's happened is even through the win streak, the women weren't necessarily able to score a lot. They haven't been a real dynamic scoring team. They've really relied on Joanna Smith quite a bit. She's a junior averaging, let's say, 13. What's she up to? She's at 13.8 points per game right now, which is good. She's taking a gross many more shots than anyone else. She's averaging 14 shots a game, and she's only hitting 35% of them, which isn't amazing. She's in the top 20 in the country in 3-point attempts. Nearly 8 per game. She's only hitting 30% from there. Just like Mackenzie Losing before her, she's been given the green light. And when offense stays in games and the defense gets a chance to win it. When she's off, UB's offense only scores in the mid-30s. And that's what's happened in the last couple games. I'm hoping that in this break, the women will get a chance to reevaluate their offense and find a way to move the ball around again, just like we've seen in past years. They're too willing to take 3-point shots. The team as a whole is averaging 22 shots from distance per game. They're taking them not just too frequently, but they're often taking them early in the shot clock where they have time to work it around. Stephanie Reed, sophomore from Australia, really burst on the scene in the second half of last season as UB's go-to point guard. She's back. She's able to find players. She's averaging 4 assists a game, and the rest of the UB team is averaging 8 more. There's room there to move the ball around and find lanes and players who can do it. And what we've seen, at least in the 3-game losing streak, and at times in some of the grittier wins, which is what you're going to get when you've got a defense. The defense needs to play lights out to give the offense a chance. You're seeing the offense get away from what they're good at, which is moving the ball. One of the big challenges facing the offense right now for the women is that among all these players they lost from last year, includes a couple of forwards, 3 forwards, 2 lost to graduation, 1 to transfer, who last year the solution for UB was simple: work the ball around, get it down low, let Kristen Sharkey or Alexis Malone or Krista Bacchus use their size and their strength to get the ball to the rim, and then pull down offensive rebounds and get the ball to the rim again. And UB's young, as I said. They're a real young team this year, one of the youngest in the country, and they're having trouble with their young players, inexperienced players, learning just how much of a physical advantage they have with their size. Probably the most exciting player, just for pure measurables, is Dutch freshman Mirta Schepper, who's 6'4". She's played on national team programs for the Netherlands. She's got a lot of experience. She hasn't yet figured out how much of a physical advantage she has at 6'4", and she's only averaging 3 points a game. With her size, she's only averaging just under 3 rebounds a game, and that's in about 18 minutes. If she could get up to more minutes, she'd be able to score a little more, but she's certainly not putting it together yet, just quite what her size is and how much of an advantage that is. And once that comes, I think UB will be in much better shape. There will be a much bigger target, much more reliable target down low. Right now, the Bulls are really working on scoring from jumpers, and they're not getting a lot of points in the paint. It's kind of a mix and kind of the go-to forwards. You've got Mirta Schepper, who's got the size and doesn't quite have the polish or the experience. Catherine Upps has moved to power forward this year. She's a little undersized there, but she's very positionally sound, and she's a good scorer. She makes herself open for Steph Reed quite a bit, but she doesn't quite have the size. She's playing close to 30 minutes a night, which is real good. She's hitting a couple threes. She's averaging 8 points a game, and she's pulling down 6 rebounds, and she's actually UB's leading rebounder at, I think she's only 5'8". But she's not, no matter what she does, she's not good enough to go against teams that have 2 real strong forwards that Schepper and Mariah Suchan can't both, knock out and tie up. And so against Duquesne, who had 2 players at 6'3", against Hofstra, who had 2 players at 6'1", against St. Bonaventure, with 3 players at 6'1", Catherine Upps is a little bit more limited. And then I mentioned Mariah Suchan, other kind of forward in the rotation. She's a sophomore. She got very little playing time last year. I've been impressed with her play in spurts this season. We're still kind of looking like Mirta Schepper. She's struggling to get above 15 minutes a game. She's averaging a handful of points. She's averaging 4 points a game and a couple rebounds. The thing with Suchan is consistency. She's 6'1". She's got some size. She's got deceptive offensive rebounding skills, and she's just kind of got to put it all together and get consistent. And between those 3, Catherine Upps, Mirta Schepper, and Mariah Suchan, there's we're still kind of waiting for that forward group to gel and become a consistent points in the paint option. I think if I had done some research beforehand, or if I could pull it up quickly and found the points in the paint, I would bet that a good chunk of UB's points in the paint are coming from layups from the guards, from Stephanie Reed driving, or somebody getting a pass and making their way in, or short jumpers from in front of the foul line, which is not the end of the world. But UB's not a great shooting team. They never have been under Coach Jack. And they're kind of living and dying on their defense. As I've been talking about the schedule, I said at the top of the show, Hofstra and Duquesne are both going to make the postseason. They're strong teams. St. Bonaventure is probably the other. Those are probably the 3 most difficult teams on UB's schedule for the out-of-conference. Central Florida might be pretty good. But it's frustrating, not because they're losses, but because the offense seems to have taken a total nosedive mid-year. What we're looking at, and really we're still not seeing any sort of a lineup fall together at all. Steph Reed is playing the entire game. Joe Smith and Catherine Upps are playing about 30 minutes. And after that, Coach Jack has four different players playing at least 15 minutes a night and two more playing at least 10. And they're still crying. Everyone's inconsistent. Everyone's trying to find chemistry. Senior Corinne Moss, the only senior on the team, is this dynamo spark plug of a player, but she's very reckless, and she's up to 4 points per game, and 3 rebounds on hustles, and her fouls per game are way down from the past, which is a huge boost, and I think that's why she's seeing more time. She still turns the ball over quite a bit. She does generate 2 steals a game. She's someone who's seen more time lately as UB's been more in need of a jolt. I've mentioned Mariah Suchan. Freshman Gabby Bade has started to find her shooting. She's been putting up real solid secondary stats, but it's taken some time for her shooting to find its groove. She could be someone who might earn some more minutes. On the forward end of things, Brittany Morrison is an undersized forward who's always played bigger than herself, and she's UB's leading rebounder by rate. If you were to break it down to rebounds per minute, Brittany Morrison is UB's best rebounder by a long shot. She's still only playing 12 minutes a game. It would be interesting to see if she plays her way into more minutes. Lisa Upps has not had as large of a role as she did last year, but she's getting 12 minutes a game as a solid kind of a swing guard option. She's seeing plenty of time. She started 8 of UB's 9 games. That's, 10 different players who are seeing more than 10 minutes a game. Courtney Wilkins had probably her best game of her career, which is only this season against Duquesne. She hit a couple threes in that real hot second quarter that kept UB in it and really gave UB the lead going into the half. And I won't talk about the individual game. But Courtney Wilkins looks like she's starting to put some things together after she was ill last year. But the end result is that UB doesn't have much in the way of chemistry or a lineup. Or when Joanna Smith or Stephanie Reed or Catherine Upps kind of take over and get the ball and just are determined to score. And the defense has more recently taken some dings in those, giving up 79 points against Hofstra and Duquesne. But they held themselves, they kept Bonaventure down. They didn't score anything against Bonaventure, but they kept Bonaventure down. Through December, they were in the top 15 in the country in scoring defense. Like I said, they started out their season with 3 of their first 4 games were under 42 points allowed. And for an offense like theirs that's young and trying to find its groove, that defense is good enough to eke out some wins, And if you only need your offense to score 55 points, you're going to win some games because almost any offense in the country should be able to do that. In the intervening time, we've seen 2 games where the offense has failed to get to 40. And that stretch spanned 3 games in 6 days, and we'll see, what it looks like going forward. It's tough to watch that because it looked like they had a real solid defense. They were getting points in transition, making high quality shots, and in these last 2 games, as they've fallen behind, they try to go for everything all at once, and that 3-point shooting doesn't work. Like I said, they're averaging 22 shots per game from distance. They're only hitting 6. Even from inside, if you take out those shots, they're only averaging 14 for 35 per game from inside the arc, which is 40%, which is not bad from inside the arc. But if you were to take out, their 25% 3-point shooting and got more shots from closer, they would score more points. And I think that's a trouble with this team and running the offense is not just keeping the ball moving and not taking shots too early in the shot clock, but is looking for high quality shots. This is a team who I don't think is yet making the most of their possessions to find high quality shots. Their turnover numbers are down from last year. Their foul numbers are a little bit down from last year. They're only averaging 12 assists per game, which is mostly Steph Reed and everyone else getting a few here and there. It's not the same team without the forwards from last year, and that's not a surprise. I think a lot of my perceived disappointment here as I talk is colored by these last 3 games. But we all had to think that when this team, which was 80% freshman and sophomore, started out the season with 6 straight wins, that wasn't the true nature of the team. And Hofstra, Duquesne, and St. Bonaventure are the 3 toughest teams that UB will see in the out-of-conference schedule, at least. And they've had some time now off before Niagara. They've still got another week before they face Niagara next Monday. So a week from today, we'll be talking the men's team on the show a week from today. But they've got some time to work on things. They've got to fit exams in, obviously. But we'll see how the offense comes out with only 2 games in the last 3 weeks of December. They've got some time to work on things. Beyond Niagara, a week later will be Sacred Heart, and we'll be able to preview that game the next time we talk about the women on the 28th. But they'll get Cassie Orsler into the lineup, who's a center who played her first year at Robert Morris. Western New York native, Western New York Player of the Year at Grand Island. Has had to sit because of transfer rules for a long time. Will finally be eligible to play after the end of the semester. We'll play against Sacred Heart. That should kickstart UB's offense for sure. She's an experienced scorer from the low post. It'll be interesting to see how that affects the rest of the lineup, but that should give Steph Reed a target down low. That should give Joanna Smith a little bit more room to maneuver on the edge and pull a few more bodies down low if there's someone like Orsler. We're still 15 days away from seeing that, but there is kind of hope there. There's hope that their offense has worked at times. If the defense is holding teams to 50 points, that should be enough to win. And over the first 6 games, UB scored 55, 54, 56, 59 over the first 4, and then went down to Central Florida and scored 66 and then 61 against Clemson. So they know how to score when they catch fire. Against Duquesne, they scored 62, and that was thanks in part to a ridiculously hot stretch for 12 minutes in the first and second quarter. Where they got to halftime with 37 points. But they can score. They got some shooters who can get hot. They're just taking too much leeway when they're not hot. And it is what it is. This is a thing that we've seen from Coach Jack's teams. A couple of years ago, last year with Mackenzie Losing, they just don't have a reliable scorer yet. And they reference that in post-game shows. They reference that in interviews and things. They know they're young. They know they're still gelling and looking to find a reliable scorer. Joanna Smith is the name you most likely know. I've referenced her a couple times, and she has shown that she can score more than 10, night in and night out. But her last 3 games, she's only 7 for 35 in her last 3 games. That includes only 4 for 20 from 3-point distance, and that's after a season opening stretch where she scored 15, 9, 21, 17, 14, and 26. So just when it looked like they finally had a consistency out of Joanna Smith, who last year couldn't get anything to fall until the end of the year, she's kind of fallen off in the last few games. She's not taking more shots recently than she has before, but they're not falling. And from what I've been able to see, she's not always taking the most high-quality shots, kind of baseline jumpers and things like that. And we'll see what happens with this time off, some time to regroup and get a chance against Niagara on Monday. Otherwise, it's always good if we can see Stephanie Reed performing well. She is that kind of player who will very quietly, you won't really notice her, and then at the end of the day, she'll have 7 points, 5 rebounds, and 4 assists, and a couple steals, and have done a little bit of everything while playing the entire game, 35, 36 minutes. That's what UB is going to get from Steph Reed, and that should be enough from their point guard. Ashley Zuber is an assistant coach. She's a good teacher. She's been around, and that should be enough to learn from Reed. But without those forwards like Kristen Sharkey, Krista Bacchus, and Alexis Malone, who they had last year, it's a little bit more of a gamble working inside. Reed and Catherine Upps have a lot of chemistry, but Upps is undersized for that power forward role. And she's very good positionally, and she's got a good nose for the basket. But when you go up against something like the 2-6-3 players that Duquesne has, it's just not enough. And Mirta Shepard has the size, and she's a smart player, and she doesn't quite yet have the finesse and the technicality and kind of the physicality that she needs to have as a 6'4" player with the advantages that she's got posting up against anyone there. And so that will come. It'll be interesting to see what Cassie Orsler brings. She won't have actually played by the next time we talk women's team, but she's on the horizon. Women's hoops is this was a year where it was an obvious rebuilding year, and like I said, 6 wins in a row kind of spoiled us. 3 losses in a row probably have us a little down. I would have been very happy with 6-3 at this point. I would have predicted things a little bit differently and where those wins and losses had come from. But the defense hasn't missed a beat, and I think they're a stronger defense than last year. They're committing fewer fouls, and they're playing towards the end of the shot clock more frequently, and they're still generating the same number of turnovers. So that's always exciting. I think that teams are finding the template to beating this young team, which is to press them and to attack them with multiple big players in the low post, and we'll see how they adjust. We'll see how they adjust to the press as these young freshmen and sophomores get more used to the game. We'll see how the low post defense adjusts once Cassie Orsler can get into it, once Shepper and Suchin continue to learn and kind of build their repertoires. I have a lot to say. I don't have anyone joined by me to talk, so I'm pretty much going to end the show after 20 minutes tonight. Really a tale of 2 seasons so far for women's basketball. You've got these 6 wins built on a lockdown defense and an offense that was good enough, below average, but good enough. And now you've got three games where the defense maybe hasn't been as good and the offense has not been good enough at all, not even close. You're seeing it. You're seeing really what it's down to is this is a young team really robbed from what should have been a big year, a culmination of things, of players coming together and recruiting classes coming together and Coach Jack's system getting some tread under it. And that's not happening. The program is starting over. And so that strong defense and those 6 wins were a real big boost, and maybe everything's not as bad as we thought. And these 3 losses have not only been to very good teams, but have been troubling in the way that they've gone down as well. UB has 2, as I referenced a couple times, 2 out-of-conference games left. Next Monday, they'll be at Niagara at 7 p.m. That's a big year without too much issue at all. 2 years ago, they were in an absolute shootout against Niagara on the day of the Potato Bowl. That was a fun game to follow. After that, 2 weeks from now on Tuesday, they'll take on Sacred Heart. As I've mentioned, that'll be Cassie Orsler's debut. They beat Sacred Heart pretty easily last year. I don't think they ever actually ran away with it, but I think they won 88-80 and had 5 players in double digits. Or maybe it was 4 double-doubles in that game. But the game against Sacred Heart last year was a good one. Oh, I'm confusing them with St. Francis. Well, never mind. They'll play Sacred Heart. We'll see Cassie Orsler, and that's how that'll go. So those are only 2 more games in the next 2 weeks or so for women. Then they'll start MAC play. We'll have a lot more to talk about for both basketball teams once they start MAC play. On future Mondays, I'll be joined by other folks who can help me stretch out the show. This was obviously the first time we were talking women's basketball, so we're just kind of catching up on the season as a whole. It's been a couple of days since the game. It'll be a few days more before a game. We'll be able to talk more specifics quite a bit once we get on the other side of this exam break and the season really jumps into another gear. Thanks for watching for the short show. I've had somebody join in the last minute and a half. I apologize. You've missed the show. You can watch it on replay almost immediately. As always, I'm Matt Gritzmock for ubbullrun.com. On Mondays through basketball season, we'll be talking. Our normal football show is turned into a basketball show. We'll be talking men's hoops and women's hoops on alternate Mondays. This was a women's night. Next Monday, we'll talk the men coming off their game against Montana State. We'll also cover last Saturday's win against Binghamton, and we'll look ahead to the game against VCU. We'll next talk about the women in 2 weeks. We'll cover Niagara, the game against Niagara, which will have happened by then, and we'll also preview Sacred Heart, as I just said. Hopefully I'll be joined by John, Robbie, Drew, perhaps Tim by then. If not, I'll talk about everything by myself again. Thanks for watching now or on tape delay, whatever you want to call it. As always, ubbullrun.com. Have a good week.